The internet has always been a dangerous jungle, but this time, it felt personal. It felt poisonous. One tiny tap on a screen, one harmless-looking like, unleashed a digital hurricane that tore through fanbases, friendships, and even celebrity bloodlines. What should have been an ordinary moment on social media suddenly mutated into a full-scale cultural meltdown involving Rihanna, Beyoncé, and a storm of accusations that no one saw coming. And the wildest part? It all erupted so fast that even Mama Tina Knowles felt the tremors shaking the beehive. It began the way disasters usually begin online, quietly, deceptively, like a spark under dry leaves. Someone posted a bold, almost reckless claim: Rihanna has more star power than both Beyoncé and Taylor Swift combined. No context. No explanation. Just a verbal grenade thrown into three of the most aggressive fandoms on Earth. Within seconds, the internet lost its oxygen. Timelines combusted. Comment sections turned into modern-day battlefields. The Rihanna Navy was the first to strike. Fiercely loyal, beautifully ruthless, and always armed with receipts, they defended their queen with a vengeance. They reminded the world that Rihanna's influence extended far beyond music. She built an empire: Fenty Beauty, Savage X Fenty, Fenty Hair, brands that reshaped industries and reshaped culture. She became a billionaire without chasing endless tours or sacrificing her sanity to charts. They shouted that Rihanna no longer played the celebrity game. She reinvented it. She was a mogul, a visionary, a walking economic force who could shift entire markets with a single Instagram post. To them, her star power did not simply shine, it radiated like a supernova. But the beehive heard the claim, and they swarmed with righteous fury. How could anyone, they argued, dare to question the legacy of Beyoncé, an artist who built her empire not with shortcuts, but with sweat, discipline, devotion, and unmatched talent? They poured out evidence like prosecutors in a high-stakes trial: the record-breaking tours, the decades of dominance, the performances so flawless they felt supernatural. Beyoncé, they insisted, was not just a celebrity. She was a cultural monument, a global symbol of Black excellence, a generational blueprint for what mastery looks like. To even suggest she lacked star power felt, to them, like disrespect on a cosmic level. And then, as if the fire needed more fuel, the Swifties entered the arena. They marched in like an army that had fought too many battles to be underestimated. They defended Taylor Swift with their own arsenal: billions of streams, stadium tours that sold out faster than oxygen disappears in a vacuum, songwriting that transformed heartbreak into poetry that millions claimed as their own. They argued that Taylor's connection to her fans was not just music, it was a shared emotional universe. Suddenly, the internet was no longer a place of opinions. It was a war zone. Hashtags exploded. TikTok theories multiplied. People claimed the like was a mistake. Others believed it was a subtle jab, a secret message, a betrayal hiding in plain sight. Screenshots spread like wildfire. Mama Tina even trended for a moment as fans begged her to speak, to clarify, to restore peace, but the chaos only grew louder. What started as a single like turned into a cultural earthquake. And no one, absolutely no one, was prepared for the aftershocks still coming. The debate did not just continue, it raged like a wildfire tearing through a dry forest, fed by blind loyalty, pride, and the thrill of competition. What started as a casual argument quickly evolved into a philosophical war. Was star power measured by money? Influence? Vocal mastery? Touring dominance? Or pure cultural impact? Every fanbase twisted the definition into whatever shape suited their queen. But beneath this loud and chaotic argument, a darker, older story began to whisper. A story dripping with history, rivalry, and wounds that never truly healed. Because this was never just about a like on social media. This was not even about the post. This was about Rihanna and Beyoncé, two empires, two legacies, and a relationship that has been suffocating under rumors, comparisons, and whispered betrayal for more than a decade. It was about a ghost named Jay-Z, a shadow that has hovered over both women, turning every smile into a theory and every silence into a headline. And as the internet tore apart timelines, analyzed interviews frame by frame, and rewound old award show interactions like detectives on a crime series, one truth became obvious: this was not fandom chaos. This was a throne war. Rewind the clock to the mid-2000s. Rihanna, glowing with potential and carrying the sun in her voice, storms into the music world with Pon de Replay, a track that felt like bottled summer. Jay-Z, then ruling Def Jam, spots the spark and moves fast. He signs her. He champions her. He declares her the future. But the moment the ink dried, the air thickened. Rumors began to slither through studios and tabloids. People whispered that Jay-Z was not just a mentor, but allegedly growing too close. Allegedly, lines were crossed. Allegedly, feelings that should never have existed began taking shape. Suddenly, the Carter Empire shook. According to the whispers, Beyoncé was devastated. Betrayed. She withdrew, silent and stunned, trying to make sense of a marriage that felt like it was dissolving beneath her feet. The world would not know any of this yet, but the tension would eventually erupt in the most infamous elevator in celebrity history. Everyone remembers that grainy footage, Solange, fierce and protective, unleashing pure anger on Jay-Z while Beyoncé stood between them like a statue cracked in half. The internet watched, stunned, as the flawless Carter image shattered in seconds. The official statement spoke of family matters and reconciliation. But the public never believed it. Online detectives insisted the confrontation was about Jay-Z's alleged infidelity. And deep within those rumored accusations sat one name, Rihanna. Years passed, but the rumors only grew sharper. Then came a darker twist. Rihanna's former publicist suddenly resurfaced with an explosive accusation. She claimed that Jay-Z had been under federal investigation for allegedly engaging in unlawful activity with a minor Rihanna. She even claimed he allegedly transported her across state lines. The allegations were severe, disturbing, and unverified, yet they carved a deeper fracture into the public's imagination. The story became so tangled, so morally heavy, that even silence felt incriminating. And then came Chris Brown. A relationship that began like a storm and ended like a tragedy. The assault that shocked the world left Rihanna bruised not just physically, but emotionally. Yet even in that horror, the shadow of Jay-Z returned. Some whispered that the fight was triggered by an STD Rihanna allegedly contracted from Jay-Z and passed to Chris Brown, a rumor drenched in betrayal, rage, and devastation. There was never proof, but gossip does not need evidence. It only needs oxygen. Meanwhile, Beyoncé kept moving with royal poise. Her silence became its own language. Then she released Lemonade, a visual masterpiece dripping with fury, heartbreak, and forgiveness. Fans devoured it, dissected every lyric, hunting for the mysterious other woman referenced in the album. The Beehive convinced themselves that the puzzle pieces pointed to Rihanna. But Beyoncé, with that signature grace, never confirmed anything. She never uttered Rihanna's name. Her refusal to engage only intensified the obsession. So now, years later, Rihanna is a billionaire mogul shaping global beauty trends, and Beyoncé is a cultural titan shaping generations, yet a single like on Instagram drags them back into the same battlefield. Is Rihanna subtly provoking Beyoncé, reminding her of a history the world refuses to forget? Or is she simply scrolling, living her life, entirely unaware of the chaos erupting behind her? And what about Mama Tina? The internet painted her as a warrior mother ready to storm the gates of Fenty headquarters if needed. Is she actually preparing to defend Beyoncé's legacy? Or is this simply the internet doing what it does best, turning dust into thunder? The truth is simple: the Beehive is watching. The Navy is watching. The Swifties are sharpening their swords just in case. Because once the internet senses blood, the Game of Thrones of pop culture never stops. But step back from the battlefield, and the contrast becomes fascinating. Rihanna and Beyoncé do not even exist in the same artistic universe anymore. Rihanna built her throne from authenticity, risk, rebellion, and a refusal to be controlled. She radiates freedom. She is the friend who dances barefoot at a party, disappears for months, and returns with a billion-dollar idea. She breathes chaos and charm at the same time. Beyoncé built her throne through discipline, precision, strategy, and mastery. She is regal excellence personified. She moves like a woman who understands the weight of her crown. She inspires evolution. People do not simply love Beyoncé. They study her. That is why the comparison will never end. Rihanna makes people feel free. Beyoncé makes people feel inspired. Rihanna invites you to mischief. Beyoncé invites you to greatness. Each artist reflects a different part of the human experience, and that duality is why fans cling to the rivalry so fiercely. So is Rihanna truly throwing shade with that like? Or is she merely vibing, scrolling through her feed, unaware that entire fan bases are preparing for war? Social media has turned every tap, every emoji, every accidental double tap into a political act. It hates uncertainty. It demands sides. Maybe Beyoncé has not seen the post. Maybe Rihanna never thought twice. But the internet will dissect their every move forever. Because in celebrity culture, drama is not an accident. Drama is a currency. And the world will always be ready to spend it. Regardless of what Rihanna meant, the impact hit the internet like an earthquake with no warning. The Beehive did not simply react, they mobilized with the fury of 1,000 burning suns. They flooded timelines with receipts, timelines with history, timelines with passion sharpened into blades. They declared that Beyoncé had never disrespected Rihanna, that Beyoncé did not involve herself in petty digital games, and that any accusation of shade was nothing more than projection from the jealous. They framed Rihanna as a fading star grasping at old headlines, a woman stirring ancient embers to keep her relevance warm. And in their eyes, Beyoncé rose higher, above drama, above impulsive likes, above anything that did not align with her sacred level of professionalism. It stopped being about the women. It became about everything the fans needed them to symbolize. The Rihanna Navy countered with equal force. They reminded the world that Rihanna became a billionaire through her own grit and vision. They insisted she did not need Beyoncé's validation because her empire spoke louder than any award. They argued Rihanna surpassed the music industry rather than needing to dominate it. They claimed that Beyoncé envied Rihanna's freedom, her instinctive business genius, her effortless influence. They insisted Beyoncé's world was sculpted, polished, curated, while Rihanna's world was raw, magnetic, and free. Each side twisted nuances into weapons, exaggerated flaws, magnified strengths. Because that is what fanbases do, they defend, they project, and they turn their idols into battlegrounds for their own unspoken feelings. Meanwhile, the truth probably lives somewhere soft and quiet, far away from the virtual smoke. Rihanna, who built an empire by following her impulses, may simply scroll without thinking twice about what she taps. Beyoncé, who built her legacy on silence, mystique, and immaculate control, may not even know this conversation is happening. But nuance rarely trends. Outrage does. Frenzy does. The spectacle always wins. Every corner of social media becomes a war zone. Tweets act like daggers. Instagram stories become exhibits. TikTok theories multiply like sparks in gasoline. The timeline transforms into a courtroom where strangers pretend to be lawyers, judges, and executioners. Beyoncé and Rihanna may be living serene, luxurious lives, miles away from the noise, yet their digital doppelgangers are dragged into conflict every time an algorithm senses a chance to ignite chaos. But here is the part no one talks about: these women have become cultural mirrors. The public does not merely watch them, they project themselves onto them. Rihanna represents liberation, the fantasy of doing whatever you want without losing love, success, or admiration. She symbolizes the dream of walking away from obligations and still winning. Beyoncé represents mastery, the fantasy of discipline, intention, and unstoppable excellence. She symbolizes the dream of rising above every expectation with grace and control. These artists became archetypes rather than individuals. And archetypes invite conflict, because they embody opposing philosophies about identity, ambition, and power. Yet in reality, Rihanna and Beyoncé have shown each other respect. They have praised each other publicly. They have acknowledged each other's greatness. The rivalry is more cultural mythology than personal hostility. But mythology is often stronger than truth. Perception crawls faster than evidence. A rumor sprints farther than a fact. A shady interpretation earns more engagement than a neutral explanation. Rihanna expressing admiration for Beyoncé gets half the attention that a questionable like receives. That is how the internet functions: the sensational survives, the sincere dissolves. The Beyoncé versus Rihanna storyline is too addictive, too symbolic, too deeply woven into pop culture to disappear. People resurrect it even when the women do not. Because our society still struggles to accept two powerful women occupying space without forcing a competition between them. The conflict reveals more about us than it does about them. Fans are not only defending celebrities. They are defending themselves. A person who wishes for freedom sees themselves in Rihanna. A person who strives for excellence sees themselves in Beyoncé. A person who fears imperfection may resent Rihanna. A person who feels overwhelmed by pressure may find Beyoncé intimidating. Fan wars are emotional proxies for battles people cannot fight in their own lives. But beneath all the noise sits something tender: admiration. People care because these women shaped eras. They influenced fashion. They altered music. They gave millions soundtracks for their heartbreaks, triumphs, and transformations. Passion becomes messy, but it begins from love. Imagine Rihanna scrolling, chuckling at the chaos, sipping something expensive, then tossing her phone aside as she returns to her life as a mother, a mogul, a woman who earned her freedom. Imagine Beyoncé somewhere rehearsing with godlike precision, or resting in quiet luxury, unaware of the digital war swirling around her. They are too big, too established, too focused to be governed by internet speculation. Yet the cycle will continue. The next cryptic caption will spark theories. The next seating chart will ignite controversy. The next side-eye in a backstage clip will become a prophecy. Because that is the nature of modern fame: constant surveillance, emotional investment, and a hunger for conflict that never sleeps. Perhaps the deeper truth is this: people do not love Rihanna and Beyoncé in spite of their differences, but because of them. Rihanna teaches courage. Beyoncé teaches discipline. Rihanna embodies rebellion. Beyoncé embodies mastery. Rihanna shows how to win through authenticity. Beyoncé shows how to win through excellence. Together, they represent the full spectrum of feminine power. So if Rihanna liked a shady post, maybe it was intentional. Maybe it was boredom. Maybe it was nothing. But the world will always interpret it as something, because interpretation is entertainment, speculation is sport, and the mythology of celebrity thrives on uncertainty. In the end, this was never a story about two women feuding. This was a story about millions of people projecting their dreams, fears, and identities onto icons who never asked to be symbols. The Beyoncé-Rihanna narrative persists because it is not about them. It is about us. The Stan wars have evolved into something far more intense than simple fan disagreements. They have grown into digital battlegrounds, into psychological arenas where misinformation burns hotter than truth, where exaggeration becomes scripture, and where tribal loyalty overshadows logic. These online armies are not merely defending their favorite artists anymore. They are defending their identities, their personal myths, and the emotional investments they have woven into these celebrities. It is fandom turned warfare. It is devotion turned doctrine. But the most chilling part of this saga is the shadow that hovers silently above it all, the figure of Jay-Z. He is the ghost in the circuitry, the invisible pulse in every rumor, the puppeteer whose silence strikes louder than a shouted confession. Even when he says nothing, the world interprets everything. His alleged affair with Rihanna, true or false, cemented itself into pop culture consciousness like a scar that refuses to heal. It mutated over time, transforming from gossip into legend. It became the kind of whispered mythology that shapes entire narratives long after the people involved have stopped feeding it. And whether the public believes it or rejects it, the story's survival reveals something profound about the way we consume celebrity. We search for flaws. We cling to cracks. We look for proof that even the gods can bleed, because it makes our own fractures feel less tragic. It is a reminder that fame does not protect anyone from the messiness of being human. If anything, it intensifies every insecurity, magnifies every misstep, and broadcasts every misunderstanding to millions of eager spectators. Jay-Z may be a titan of music and business, but he is still a man navigating the fallout of past decisions, whispers, suspicion, and the ever-evolving loyalties of the online world. Rihanna, meanwhile, found herself cast in a role she never auditioned for, both the heroine and the villain of a narrative she neither confirmed nor denied. Fans twisted her legacy into whatever shape best supported their emotional allegiance either to her, to Beyoncé, or to the fairy tale they projected onto the Carter marriage. The rumor became a weapon. And once a rumor becomes ammunition, it never dies. And then there is Mama Tina, the matriarch, the strategist, the quiet storm. Her involvement, even the mere suggestion of it, adds a new dimension to the drama. She does not raise her voice because she does not need to. Her authority comes from presence, not performance. She is the guardian of the Carter legacy, the woman who has watched fame wound and uplift her daughters in equal measure. She has witnessed every rumor, every betrayal, every attempt to fracture Beyoncé's dignity. She has endured storms that the public never saw. So if she senses disrespect aimed at Beyoncé, she would not hesitate to respond. The internet knows this. The fans know this. Even celebrities know this. When Mama Tina speaks,